Three, two, one.
Awesome. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening for all of you joining us here. We have a very special guest. He is a man that requires no introduction, our keynote for MSP's 2021 Vision Week, Jacco from Winning by Design. Jacco, thank you so much. I'm excited for you to dive in here, and I don't want to waste even a second more. So I'll hand it off to you. Thank you so much again for sharing your perspective with MSP.
Folks, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to be here. This is a session we're gonna, enjoy it a little bit, okay? And what I would like to do is I would like to share with you a few of the best practices that we have learned over the past week. So I'm gonna straight go to my right camera angle, and what we're going to talk is about models. And the general idea that we are looking for with these models is I want to share with you some of the things and practices that we have found, some of the early signals that we have seen and where we are going as a market. I'm super passionate about sharing this with you. So let's get going. Let's share that with you. The book that I'm actually want to start off with recommending that talks a lot to this extent is the book, The Model Thinker. And for those of you, let me see on the chat. I'm looking at the chat there. Anybody, have you seen this book? Looking at all of you. Folks, give me a beat on the chat if you have heard or seen this book, even if you haven't. Not heard of or anything. Oh, this is all fueled by Red Bull for those of you who know me. Okay. What I'm going to talk about in this book is the concepts of several of the models that we over the past years have developed at Winning by Design. And we want to share those models with you. The key model for today is sustainability. And sustainability is so important for us because it has, over the years, it has indicated that, we are seeing a new kind of growth pattern. And that's what I want to share with you. Here's where I'm going to start. What we see here are 8 models that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to start, not all of them. I'm going to briefly touch on a few, but the one that I'm focused on is that one, that growth model. I would like to give you a heads up that what we are seeing is not yet the final. This is not final yet. We haven't seen everything yet. Okay, so I want to make sure that you can all hear and see me because I don't see the chat yet. Can you see and hear me? Just give me a beat back on that chat channel in Zoom. Let me see if everybody can see and hear me.
Jacco, we have chat turned off right now, so we're going to be turning that on in just a second for folks.
That would be so great because I would love to see you folks out there. I cannot be popping Red Bull and not have some feedback. There, Jason, thank you. And I see a relief. Yes, Jason Manna, thank you for joining. Okay, here's the models I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to step through first and foremost business model, and then as I step through, I'm going to go through model by model. Okay, thank you, Frank. I can't see model 5 yet because my head is in front of it. Ta-da! Yes, I know. Okay, business model. Now, in all seriousness, although let's take life serious, but also let's take not for granted how beautiful this day is today. Okay. Here we go with the business model. And feel free to ask questions, okay, as I describe this. I'm watching carefully the chat to see if there's questions. What you see down here is a model that I previously explained, which is business models. How are we going to get paid? On the left, we see pay up front. On the right, we see no cure, no pay. What we are going to talk about today is one very specific model only. We're going to talk about that middle, that annual recurring revenue. That means that whatever I'm describing is not shared across hardware and software or model perpetual models or to the right. It doesn't necessarily impact all the business on the right. What it primarily impacts is that model, this one in particular, recurring revenue. That's what we're going to look at. You will later on when somebody says, but Jacco, I have 3-year contracts, then I'm going to say, well, 3-year contracts, sit down here, multi-year annual contracts. Now what you'll see, if in SaaS we go to a 2-year contract, 3-year contract, 4-year contract, 5-year contract, folks, we're going to end up in perpetual sales, okay? And if I go to the other end and say like, hey, I'm going from a monthly SaaS contract to a weekly, daily, hourly, you end up in usage model. And so that's what is demonstrated down here. How are we maneuvering between business models? Because wherever you are, things are slightly different. Today, annual contract model. Next model. This model you may be fairly familiar with. I just want to make sure that we are all comfortable with this. What you see down here is the bow tie data model. Now, conversion rate 3 and 4, and I'm going to give you a brief explanation on what that is. Conversion rate 4, you may know as win rate. Okay, and so what I typing in down there, that is win rate. And conversion rate 3 is essentially the handoff rate. These are like common terms that we use in 2-stage. If you're a 1-stage sales organization, you don't have a handoff. Ha! No, you don't. So maybe you have a handoff with marketing, but not a handoff between an SDR and an AE. Okay, and so that's your win rate down here. If I go further to the right, conversion rate number 5, that is onboarding churn. It's the activation. So this is churn during activation. Let me spell that right. Churn during activation. And if I go further to the right, I'm going to have retention and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is where we are churning people, and this are towards the end, or hopefully not churning people. And here toward the end, where you see upsell, cross-sell, and so on. Any questions, any thoughts? Do you know, this is the data model that we're using. At the bottom, I'm using currently a fairly standardized MQL, SQL, SAL win rate. Some of you may flip SQL and SAL. If your terminology is more marketing driven, then it is first SAL, then SQL. I understand that. So these two sometimes are debated if they're in the reverse order. It just depends on who you speak to. So keep that in mind. This is the data model. We're going to use the data model. Can you name a conversion rate range on some of these? What do you mean with oh, yes, I can. Win rate, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the win rate often in the range. Give me an idea, Ryan. What is a normal conversion rate on a win deal? Give me a rate that you're familiar with. What is a win rate that you're comfortable with? 33%, thank you. Now, 33%, and this is where I'm going to help you think that through, 33% sits historically here on the left. That is where the 33% sits. So 33%, if I just use the word ownership here and you know, I can copy that and say that 33% sits right on that perpetual. That's the reason why you often see, oh, I need 3x the pipeline. So 33% sits here. What we know is if I'm in SaaS, then I'm looking more at somewhere between 20 and 25%. Down here, your win rate, and I'll use it right now, 22%. If I go further to the right, and dependent on dollar value and so on, you're going to see that the win rate actually is going to drop 10%. And if I can tell you, if I go all the way to freemium model, the conversion of a paid of a freemium model to a client can go all the way down to 1% or even worse. This tells you that if I go further to the right, my win rate changes. So too with several of the others. They're too far in detail to go through each of them, but that gives you an idea of what we're going for. Okay, mathematics. Now I have the data model. I want to let you know on the mathematical model that we're working from. There's a separate presentation on this. I'm just briefly touching on these models. So later on you understand like, I know we're talking about annual SaaS contracts with a win rate of, let's say, 22% and so on and so forth. What we are seeing here across that data model, if I pick that data model and I go to the mathematical model, what we see down here, that conversion rate 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all the way from prospect level to winning them, what we're seeing is that there's an exponential impact. In order to get to activated clients, I have to take my prospect times conversion rate number 1, times conversion rate number 2, times conversion rate number 3, times conversion rate, blah, 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 blah. I have to multiply this. And when I multiply things multiple times, I get exponential impact, right? Some of you who've noticed, have seen this talk before, 10% improvement across these 5, huge impact. It's called, it's a known effect called marginal impact. Small change across many factors. That is on the left. On the right, super important, is compound impact. Compound impact is even more significant than what we see normally. It actually provides us with the full double impact on compounding month after month, year after year. Now I can tell you, and I'm going to draw this arrow down here out, if I'm going to have an annual contract and it doesn't renew, it doesn't upsell, I'm essentially having this impact. There is no compound impact. CR6 and CR7 are 0, and essentially an annual contract, no upsell, no nothing, equates to exactly this, the same as the blue. Okay, now if I have a monthly contract and it keeps every month upselling and increasing the value, more seats and so on, I'm going to get compound impact. And those of you familiar with product-led growth, this is like the engine of product-led growth. This is where like the good stuff comes in from. Okay, what I'm talking about next is the GTM model. What can we do with the GTM model? Now we know that at the back end, there's a lot of compound impact. What I'm now looking at is the go-to-market model. Again, on our website, you can find these, or on YouTube, you can find a description of all these models in more depth. What we see down here is the go-to-market segmentation. In the go-to-market segmentation, we are segmenting annual contract value and number of contracts, and in there, we are putting the go-to-market strategies. So for example, if I'm selling, and I'll name this for the time being SMB, so if I'm selling SMB down here, and I'm selling in the SMB space at $20,000-ish, then most likely I'm dependent on inbound. I may have some prospecting techniques for which I'm using a two-stage sales organization, and my CSMs are probably segmented based on volume. They're probably using, like 200, 250 accounts or something like that. If I'm selling to the enterprise, which I'm highlighting here, if I'm selling to the enterprise, for the time being, give it a little color, let's make it bright blue. Okay, when I'm looking at that, then most likely I'm using a form of an account-based strategy. I'm probably using like AEs, field sales style AEs, and my CSMs are probably segmented based on vertical market. For example, security versus educational versus government and so on. So you see that the segmentation of the customer success reps in pink are different. The segmentation of the sales in the blue boxes, the blue highlight boxes, is different. And how we are differentiating and what campaigns we're dependent on and marketing are different. I'm going to stop there, take a sip of my Red Bull, and see if there are any questions. By the way, I need to play some music. Yeah, there we go. This is the go-to-market model. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of extra. I want to get some extra stuff in here. And here's the extra stuff. What we see on the left in go-to-market models is we see that the engine behind it is a product that drives reputation, that drives users. That's the engine behind it. Now, as many of you know, I've said it before on previous sessions, I'm the unofficial record holder of 14 Red Bulls in 4 hours. I held up, it was good. Okay, what we see down here on the left, if I look at the segment on the left, that is driven by product. That's where you see product-led growth really making a difference. If you see what sits in the middle, that is really where in the SMB sector, that's where content and events and thought leadership, that's the reason why people who sell $24,000 platforms, they really get like the benefit, like Gainsight with the Pulse event. Like that's what happens here, right? And if you see lower end products, whether it's Slack or whether it's Superhuman, as they fit this model. If I go at the high end, watch what happens. If this is product and this is event and thought leadership, then what sits here is people and brand. And that is often misunderstood. This is where people and brand fit. And people and brand indicate in generally why there's such an importance on relationships on that higher end. You'll see now the difference. We're going to step through them. On the left, product. In the middle, thought leadership with content. And on the right, brand. Expertise based. That's the stuff. That's where the GTM comes in. And that brings us to part of where we are going today. Just wanted to give everybody, give me a quick chat. Give me a thumbs up. Give me some sign, a yes, no. I need to see some vibes on that chat line. If this is the content you're looking to get today, is this something? Yes. Okay, good. More. You give me like a Ryan and John. Yes. Okay, good. Yes. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, here's where I'm going next. Thanks, Jason, Ryan, Kristen, and all the other Melissa. Oh, you're good. So sometimes you sit, because I'm sitting here in this warm room. I mean, lights are burning in my face on every angle, as you can see, right? And so, okay, I'm going into growth stages. This is where we are going to start. In a second, I'm going to depict to you what growth strategies are. But at first, I need us to establish what growth stages are, okay? Horizontally, we're going to have time. Vertically, we're going to have revenue. There is a time that we have pre-revenue that sits at the lower left corner. First, I want to get you oriented. In that left lower corner, pre-revenue, we're talking about prototyping and building minimal viable product. We come out of minimal viable product where the product actually is working and a client is willing to pay for it. This is the part where we are starting to take a look at it. We are starting to take a look at product market fit. And what we see in product market fit is that the clients are willing to pay repeatedly a certain dollar figure. Often this is 20 to 30 clients on a platform price. And what we also notice is that this is essentially ends up being, when you're selling usage-based or user-based, we're talking about 1,000 to 2,000 users that you're having for your product. Then it starts to occur. What we're going to talk about in more detail today is the go-to-market fit. The go-to-market fit sits here, and for that, it means that we are getting in the range of a couple of $1 million. As we come out of that, we are in scale-up mode. This scale-up, in generally, we're trying to achieve growth bigger than 40%, which is considered hyper-growth, or rapid growth, which is beyond 20%. We'll come back to that later on. The key down here is, the key to understand that you cannot achieve that if you did not get your product market fit squared away. And this is the most common challenge we are facing. What we see down here is what we call the growth model, the growth stages that we are using. This is the model for growth stages. I'm going to depict a few practical scenarios in here in order to let you realize what the challenges are. Scaling failure number one. We're using this model, and what we're seeing at the back end is that we want to scale what is in that little thing down there. We're going to scale the failures. What you'll see is that, oh, thank you, slightly cut off at the edges. Thank you. Let me reduce that. Let me make sure that I get that straight. I'm bringing it in. There we go. Better? Yes, better. Yeah, we can see the W too, top of that. Okay, what I'm now going to do, I'm going to scale that. What you'll see down here, do you see how that amplitude on that monthly or quarterly, whatever that monthly is, those amplitudes, those things, those waves can be monthly, quarterly, could be weekly. But what we see is that they're getting worse and worse. They're starting to create bigger and bigger amplitude. That is an indication that our swings are, like we miss a quarter, we hit a quarter, we miss a month, we hit a month. And if you do this and you start bringing on a new funding, that B round funding that you thought you were going to get over there is going to create, this level of growth expectation. And with this level of growth expectation, what you're going to see right now is as you get more money, let's say you get $10, $20 million in the B round, you're going to bring on salespeople, you're going to bring on marketing campaigns. And what you're going to see is like, that thing is going to amplify by the amount of people that you're having. It's going to go even worse. And that is scaling failure. Now, what you want to see down here is the following. If you would, draw the growth line, this would be your growth line. And if I then say is like, hey, what is your post-investment after this? This is your growth line. And many people would say is like, oh my gosh, this is great, man. This is great. We have great growth. Like we brought on new VPs of sales. This is increased growth. Yet as a VP of sales, you find yourself fired sooner or later because what? This was the level of growth expectation. This was the level that the company was invested on. And that is the key down here to realize that this level of growth investment essentially resulted here. Okay? This is the problem. Now, what is going to be here, the big problem is, you see that line? Your growth is delayed. And delaying your go-to-market is the most expensive thing that can happen. Forget about the people we lost in the process. Forget about the clients we may have lost. It is delaying your go-to-market fit. And that is the key challenge around here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, like, if you don't do this and you're a failure here, first person to go is the CRO VP of sales. Now this VP of sales often was here from that first rounds. And so you're going to either see that VP of sales gone, relegated, or a new CRO being hired on top of that VP of sales. Very common. That's that first downfall. Second, we're going to get a down round. And third, the CEO is going to be put on a special assignment of some sort, aka become the chairman and relegated out. These are the 3 steps that you'll see. This picture is what the problem is from missing your go-to-market strategy, not hitting that growth window. Now, what you'll see, so that's one. I'm going to go back and we're going to go to the next problem. Multiple GTM strategies. Where does this come from? What I'm now going to demonstrate, and this is a real practical situation. I want you to see down here. We have multiple SMBs. We have an SMB that brings in $18 million in ARR. And so we think we sit here. This is a practical example. Oh my gosh, we're beyond 10. We're on our way to 100. We must have a product market fit. But then when we take a closer look, what you're going to see is that they launched somewhere in the middle of that, they launched an enterprise product. And they think, like, enterprise product, we're going to help us scale our revenue. What they don't realize is that in order for your enterprise product to work, your enterprise product has to re-go through the product market fit, re-go through go-to-market fit stages. But many companies think, because my SMB is go-to-market fit, therefore my enterprise product is also go-to-market fit. They did not build the product for the enterprise. They do not have the services and so on. And if you launch another product, you have to go through it again and again and again. A very common mistake. This, for example, is where the SMBs, salespeople, suddenly turn into the enterprise reps. Folks, we didn't hire them for enterprise rep. We didn't train them on enterprise rep. Folks, we're not even selling to enterprise. Nike is a big brand name, but selling to 5 people in Nike is not selling to an enterprise. And so that is, like an idea of where that goes wrong. Final, and the next step where we things go wrong, going too soon. Too soon. Look at here. I am now at $5 million in ARR. I'm thinking I'm well on my way to 10. Look, Jacco, we're getting go-to-market fit. It's happening. We are seeing good stuff. I got 2 AEs selling for $100,000 down here. Look at that. I got, this is amazing, right? 2 AEs doing 100K deals. Oh, we're on it. We got 1 SDR and AE selling a bunch of 20K deals. And we got a whole bunch of sales to the web coming in. We are going. As soon as we see that, we see 3 different go-to-market strategies. If I go back, all the way back, and I go back to this picture, you essentially have this product. You have one here, the low-end product, the middle-end product, and the high-end product. You just have 3 different go-to-market strategies. And so now what I'm going to do, each of these go-to-market strategies needs their own approach. And so I see that instead of having $5 million where you think you're sitting, you got your do-it-yourself product-led growth sitting there. You got your enterprise there and your SMB there, because when I look at the revenue, I see that your revenue is all split up across these 3 markets. And where I thought I was 1 to 2 quarters at most out of achieving go-to-market fit, getting a B round, and starting to bring on a bunch of salespeople, in reality, when I'm looking at it, I got 600K, 900K, and 3.5 million coming in from there. I am marginally at the early stages of go-to-market fit with my main product, and my do-it-yourself and enterprise product is still in product market fit. We're still testing out pricing models, salespeople, and so on and so forth. And you just got $20 million because you closed a round because you thought, hey, we're doing good at 5 million. You closed $20 million. You want to hire salespeople, and this won't scale. It won't, because we're going to get issues because we haven't figured out do-it-yourself yet. We haven't figured out enterprise yet. And we just think that hiring more people will going to solve the problem. It won't. And so instead of being 1 to 2 quarters out at most of, like bringing in a fund and so on, you are 4 to 6 quarters or more out. May I ask, does this resonate? Do you see this at your own companies? I'm looking at the chat box to see if you folks, okay, Ryan, you see this in your company? Zoe, yeah. Lived this movie several times. Yeah, that's a person spoken from experience. Yeah, and so one of the reason why we use these models is because with a model like this, it allows us later on to explain things. It allows us to draw things on the board and tell our companies where we're at, where this is happening, right? Why this is happening. This particular video just launched on our YouTube channel. In a second, I will show you how to get there so that you can share this and all these visuals with your own teams. In summary, this is our go-to-market model. And this particular model is what we're looking to build on. This is where we start. We now have determined the growth stages, and we are coming here for the topic of today, growth model. Folks, get ready. This is heavily debated. Tune your volume down, an air horn coming. Don't tell me I didn't warn you. Okay, let's take it on. Let's start this. Oh, this is a debated topic because of the amount of people involved. What I'm going to depict down here is this line of growth. This line of growth is where unicorns are created. This line of growth indicates to us the steepness of that growth curve is why we want stock options in the companies, why we want to work for these companies, why we look every day who went public or not. That is that particular line that we're looking for. I'll make it even bigger just to make sure that everybody, that line, that's the one. You know what? 24 points. Let's go with it. Okay, that's that line. That line determines and is the reason why many of us are on this call today. Now, there's different approaches to achieve that line. And I'm going to take you through several of them. Number one approach that we commonly see is blitz scaling. Blitz scaling. On the chat box, can we know any company that has used blitz scale? I'm going to let you read. Some of you, I'm going to let you read the text. And then give me in the chat box, which are companies that have used blitz scaling? There we go, Uber, Instacart, and so on and so forth. Yes. What you see here with blitz scaling, and this is important, I'm going to highlight it. Salesforce has, yes, certainly too, yes. This sentence is the key sentence down here. This is the key sentence to blitz scaling, with the goal of becoming the first mover at scale. First mover at scale. First mover. Blitz scaling works really well when you are in a fairly new market where you are the first of 3 or 5 entrants, and you get so much funding that you can actually take on that market. That is what happens. If you are, for example, if you're in the sales automation email space where companies, outreach, SalesLoft, Mixmax, and the list go on and on. If you're no longer a first mover if you're coming into that market right now. That market is already going to several of the names I said before. So blitz scaling doesn't matter. If you think that blitz scaling is of interest, then I want to worry you with the following. The word blitz is lightning, and being somewhat of a World War II researcher, blitz scaling does the following. It's how the Germans progressed their fighting lines, even at the cost of their own people. The tanks were rolling, even if their own soldiers were in front of it, because they had to keep moving. Speed was the determining factor. That means their own people would be sacrificed. That is what happens when you hear a company is blitz scaling, but it is not the first mover at scale. You are most likely going to be the one that are going to be blitzed by your own company as you are rotating through 9, 12, 18 months segments, because they're coming in, bring that person on, win deals. No deals, out of that person. The person is out, and so on. That's blitz scaling. This is not what Reid Hoffman had in mind. Reid Hoffman clearly stated, you got to be the first mover in that market or have the ability to. A different growth model is referred to as T2D3. This stands for, tripling your annual revenue 2 times and then 3 years doubling it. That's what it means. Triple twice, double 3 times. If you apply that to $1 to $2 million, and I encourage you to do that and quickly draw that out on a paper, you almost always come, if you keep it between 1 and 2, you're coming out at a $100 million plus number. Oh, sorry, that's my mouse, my sensitive mouse. And so what you'll see down here, 1 to 2 million, triple, double, 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 and you get to 100 million. This is Snowflake. Thank you, Ryan. This is companies that do that are more common nowadays. Most companies, Dipalti just came out with something similar in this. This is the common unicorn trajectory right now. Now, this comes from Niraj Agrawal from Battery Ventures. There is yet another model, and that comes from David Skock. If we look from David Skock, his LTV to CAC ratio is renowned. We love David Skock. Does anybody know David Skock? If not, oh my gosh, I assume that most, yes, yeah, there we go. We already see people. David Skock is really out there and has for the longest time giving us phenomenal data. One of his I think it's partly due to him, but he's the one who wrote the most and the best about it, is the LTV to CAC ratio. Does anybody know what a good LTV to CAC ratio is? What is the right LTV to CAC ratio? And then I'm going to explain for those of you who not what it is. LTV equals the lifetime value of a client, your customer, and CAC equals the client acquisition cost. Yes, Ryan. Okay. Now, this is a really good model. It tells us if it takes us $10,000 to win the client and they bring us only in $15,000, then maybe we should not bring on that client because that client is not going to be profitable. And it starts to really make us think about what is the right way of growing. Now, what he points down here, if you're, if the ratio is closer to 1 to 1, in other words, you're bringing as money in, you're probably spending way too much on client acquisition. And if it's 5 to 1, in other words, you're bringing in $50,000 of revenue against an $8,000 client or something like that, then you probably should spend more and acquire more. Really good indicator, but it's an indicator of a VC. Lesser known is the next growth model. This is the growth model of Sam Baker from Scale Venture Partners, and he referred to it, rapid growth is a rule of 40. And as I let you read this, what it stands for, I'll let you read this for a second. I'm going to play the music up. Okay, and this shows us that there is an importance and that there's a balance between revenue growth rate and profitability margin, and that should be equal or greater than 40%. Folks, what we see here in succession is how we thought unicorns were built in the beginning, how LinkedIn was built among others. Then we suddenly see the next generation of unicorns being built. We are now entering the worlds of unicorns being built on metrics and data, not just on market opportunities. No longer can SaaS companies be a first mover like they were down here. When LinkedIn came, they were a first mover, and Marketo and so on. They were generally first mover companies. Now what we see today is that more and more it becomes a metrics game. And that reaches to where we are today. Sustainable growth. Now, I'm going to quickly move over to the right of my screen, and I'm going to say, what is in the hack sustainability and how do I determine it? And so I'm going to, left screen. Let me see if I'm still up. I'm still up. There we go. Growth is the process of increasing in physical size, but I'm more interested in define sustainability. There we go. Okay, sustainability, the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. That is what I am looking for. And if I go back to what I said in growth, the process of increasing physical size and so on and so forth. Okay, let's go to the right. What we see down here, sustainability, to remain at a certain level. And then what we're going to do, define growth, the process of reaching full potential. This is key to understand. Growth is not that we, like, how do you call it, tap into the earth resources and keep growing. This is where we are looking at the potential, reaching your potential, not reaching the capacity that earth has to offer, because we're going to destroy earth. The process of growth down here is reaching your full potential. There is 3 different metrics that you see. Rapid growth is approximately 20%, hyper growth is over 40%, and you have a more sustainable growth pattern that we see today. Is can you keep growing where your growth rate year over year is 85% of the previous year? This starts to create a first angle towards sustainability, a first idea. This is currently being defined. We're currently in this process, but what we realize is there's 6,000 plus, 7,000 plus companies in the marketing space. We cannot just go triple, triple, double, double, double for every company in that space. Yet there is enough value and impact to be created that can be sustainable. I'm going to define this funnel in order to explain this concept. In order to define sustainable, I'm going to split up this bow tie model in 3 very specific pieces. This is where you need to be fully alert and on what we're doing. Number 1, I'm going to split out the creation of awareness and with it MQL generation. These MQL generations are the result of campaigns. You see these campaigns, and I make them different: big campaigns, small campaigns, webinar sessions, keynotes, events, assets, SEO, whatever it is. We have these programs on the left. These programs, we're going to spend approximately 10% of the annual contract value to generate the amount of 1 win. I'm going to calculate it out for you in a second. Then we're going to spend 40% on the client acquisition cost. And then I'm going to spend that on, for example, inside sales rep and click to activate, or I can spend it on an SDR AE with an onboarder and CSM, or I can spend it, in addition, spend it on a more account-based enterprise rep, an account development rep, and a solutions engineer and architect. These are 3 models that I can spend it on here in the middle. This is referred to as 1 stage, 2 stage, and it becomes field sales model. What I now see is on the back end, super important. Remember, I said earlier on, this is where the profit was generated. This is where that recurring element takes place. We got to invest in that. We can't have that as an afterthought. So down here in the sustainable model, we're spending 20% of our revenue that we get on, 20% of our annual contract value. We're going to spend on that. When we do that, we create a certain profitability, a certain gross margin. And that's where I want to talk to you about right now. That is the level that we can see where we're going to spend it on. That creates the following sustainability model. 10% goes to the cost generated, enough MQLs to generate 1 win. 40% of that money that came in on that win goes to spending on the salespeople involved in converting that, including the onboarding. And 20% of that goes to the dollar figure, to making sure that the client stays there. I'll stop here for a second before I pull up an Excel spreadsheet and we're going to calculate this out. Does everybody get this? Where I'm spending on? Feel free, and this is not easy. This is tough stuff. So feel free to ask a question. Okay, let's go to spreadsheets. I'll keep monitoring the chat box. If anybody asks a question, feel free. Okay, look, I'm switching to my chat box or to my conversation. That, like down here, I'm going to depict. I'm gonna try to see if I can put the rows in line. Okay, row number 1. You see down here, I'm gonna have cost centers, marketing, sales, and customer success. Horizontally, I'm gonna have the year-over-year growth. What I'm taking in is $24,000 annual contract value. I increased that by 8%. Whatever that 8% is, people, it could be annual increase in sales, could be upsell, could be cross-sell, could be minus churn, and so on and so forth. You could be upselling it for 20% and you have 12% churn, you end up at 8%. All this is a simplified annual increase in what you get from that client. So in year 1, I get 24,000. In year 2, I get 25,900. In year 3, I get on top 8% on top of that, for total lifetime value for a 3-year customer at $78,000. Right? Now what I'm going to see based on what I just depicted to you, I'm going to say 10% of that annual contract value, I'm going to spend $2,400 in MQL generation to get this $24,000 win. I'm going to spend on salaries and commission plans $9,600 on a single deal a year for $24,000 in order to get there, right? And then I'm going to spend $4,800 in first year probably on the CSM. Second year on the CSM, I increase it because, you know, like I take 20% of that increase in price. That tells me that as the sum of these, I spent $27,583 in that first year again over the lifetime against 77. That means that my profit over those 3 years is $50,000. If I calculate and divide those, that is without DevOps creates a gross margin of 65%. Software companies anywhere in the world run on 75% to 95% to be, you know, like that's the gross margin that they run on. This is telling you how tough these things are. In a second, I'm going to give you examples. You're going to go like, oh my gosh, are we that close? Yes, we're that close. This is all this complicated. If you don't calculate this out, money gets burnt left and right. And that's why the failure, and we can't scale. That's what this is all about. Can we calculate this? Yes, you can calculate this. Calculate it, right? Now, what you'll see, what happens if I make this a 1-year agreement. Watch what happens here on the right. In this case, I'm going to zero that out. I'm now making it a 2-year agreement, okay? So I only have the cost for 2 years and I only have the revenue 3 years. Gross margin, 56%. Now let me turn client that churns after year 1. Gross margin, 30%. This is very bad because we still need to pay G&A, which is administrative costs. We still need to pay DevOps, which is whatever Amazon AWS costs, engineers, and so on and so forth. Tools that are needed, right? Everybody has tools, so we're talking about like infrastructure and whatnot. That still needs to be paid. That is not enough. We need to get in this kind of range in order to pay for all this. What you're starting to see, and the point I'm really trying to make here, folks, if we're not careful, we're not sustainable. This entire thing doesn't work. We're winning clients. We need to calculate this out. The general idea behind sustainability is that we no longer say growth at any and all cost, but that we're looking at growth, scalable growth. Okay, ready for the next phase? Woo! Okay, see what we got. I'm going to run an inbound example and I'm going to show you how it's supposed to work and why all of us were excited about this model. I'm going to give you an idea on a pod structure where one SDR on an inbound model with an annual contract value of $24,000, where the AEs on average are 2 wins per AE per month. Okay, this seems to be, you know, like this is common. Some go to 3, then fall back to 1. So they have on average per AE, you know, like 2 wins per month. If I mean what this results into at the win rate, as I said earlier, 22%, but I make it simpler, 20%, and a 20% discount, which is on average that people give on ACV, whether I agree with it or not is secondary, but on average we see a 20% discount, which means that in that case, there's 48 logos a year. If I assume that everybody gets onboarded properly and nobody churns, that will generate $921,000 per year. From many of you seeing this, you go like, yeah, that's kind of accurate, but that's high. It's high. Am I right? Is this on point? Is this high? Give me an idea. How far am I off with those of you who have products that sell at $24,000, $20,000, $30,000? Is this high, low, or is this approximately in the range? I'm looking at the chat box. High. Yes, Andrea, this is high, right? Okay, let's keep it high right now. Yeah, thank you, John. Because in a second, you're going to know, like, if this is high, then it only gets worse. And so it's more likely, I think many of you will see more in the range of $600,000 to $700,000. Now, this is 2 AEs, right? Not per AE. 2 AEs generate. So per AE, this generates about $450. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and say like, hey, in order to do that at, you know, lead development and handoff rate of approximately this, I need about 1,000 MQLs, certified quality MQLs per year. So if I have 1,000 certified quality MQLs, which convert at 30% into an SQL, or which convert at 80% into a qualified opportunity, and then convert, like 20% to a win rate, all that gets you this kind of level of number of figures. And then historically, on an inbound, I used to pay about $40,000. 2 AEs, I pay $120 per AE, times 2 is $240. I ended up, with an onboarder, of which I'm only going to use half that person's time. Cost is $320,000 on the left. They're bringing in $921,000. We know that is high, but gosh, look at that. It's 35%. And we are awfully close to that 40% that I mentioned as where we're at. Below 40%, sustainable. As soon as that number starts creeping up to 40, 42, 43%, I'm going to show you why it no longer is sustainable. Let's do that. Let's go to outbound. Yeah, outbound. Okay, for outbound, it gets a little bit difficult. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a look at that inbound model and convert it to outbound. I'm going to upgrade my MDR, my inbound, to an SDR rep. Slightly more expensive. They need to learn how to pitch, close, handle objections and whatnot. Close on a meeting, not necessarily close on a deal. And so what I'm going to see is my fixed costs go from 320 to 360. Now I'm going to go across and say, in order for that 360 to make sense, I got to bring in $900,000 down here, right? I want to stick within that 40%. In order to do that, if I apply $24,000 with a discount on average of 20%, as you calculate that out, that brings in approximately 47 commits. And that results in approximately 293 outbound SQLs per year. That adds up to 24 SQLs per month per SDR. I'm looking at the chat box. How realistic is 24 SQLs per month per SDR in the space of where you're selling platforms at $24,000? You see, my people, I didn't prompt you guys, right? Like I see it, like, no, not this universe, not very, 6, maybe 8. Nope, again, very high. Ha! That's my point. Folks, we are all sitting on this highly unsustainable. I'm going to prove the point that you're making here for me. Only the top could try to deliver this. Exactly, Colin. Okay, the number of SQLs per SDR continues to drop. I'm dropping this to approximately half at 14 per month. As a result, I'm not going to generate enough activities. And so what are we telling our SDRs? We're telling them to increase activities. That's what we're telling them. And guess what happens when we increase the activities? All folks know, Colin has 40 per quarter as our SDR goal. Good luck on that. But that is not for $24,000 ACV, right, Colin? You're not telling me that your SDRs are generating 40 SQLs per quarter on a 24K platform. That would be very high. But look, in this case, I see 14 per month, and I know that, if they can't deliver it, telling them to increase volume of emails and calls are going to adversely impact, because what you're going to see is it's going to actually spins out of control. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Quality sucks because now what we may be doing is we may be giving them like rewards for that. We may be giving them like additional things. Oh, you know what? Set up X amount of meetings. We're going to pay you $50 per meeting or something like that. And as soon as you do that, you're increasing volume, but you're decreasing quality. And this machine starts to decrease in capability. Then what you start to see, as that keeps that 14 per month no longer delivers 47 commits, delivers 22 commits. And those 22 commits no longer generate $900,000 in revenue, they generate $440,000 in revenue. And what you're going to see, the cost did not change all that much. There may be some change in variable comp, but in the end, we're looking at 85%. Folks, unsustainable. Unsustainable. I add an SDR and upgrade my AE. I hear you say that. Oh, add an SDR. Unsustainable. I just added an SDR, got the same amount, doesn't work, 52%. This is your problem. This is the reason why we need sustainability. Growth needs to be balanced. The best way for me to visualize is this. If we are not generating profitability and growth with each other, For those of you who played this game and know how to play this game, this is what it feels like to run a rapid growth sales organization. And let me tell you, if I only give you one of these specs to control the ball, you're not gonna be able to get that all to the finish. This is what sales looks like today. If you are not using mathematics, we have a clear demand for sustainable growth. That sustainable growth needs to be based on, do these numbers add up? Because if they don't add up, they won't work. For that, we have found across our clients that this model is the closest thing to a sustainable model. 10% goes to the lead gen cost. 40% goes to the client acquisition cost, and 20. If you do this, based on the calculations I showed you on the other slide, you're going to find with an LTV that ranges between 2 to 3 years, you're going to hit approximately your sustainability. 2 to 3 years, you see these costs down here. Now look what I'm going to do. I'm going to save money. Yes, wrong thing to do. But many of you will, well, customer success cost is a lot. So let's bring that down to minus 10%. Okay. Yes, oh, look at how much gross margin you made. Yes, but now what you just did, you just cut yourself off that you are no longer, bringing in that recurring revenue. Yes. Thank you, Ryan. This is what I want you to do. Set the tone for what is about to come. Okay, with that said, as I summarize and as I want you to start preparing for a question, the models that we see down here, these models are communicated on our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel has a lot of these things described in detail. For those of you who are not subscribed already, like we do this, we like to provide all this content free of charge, or whatever it is called. Complimentary is the better word for it. And here's our YouTube channel, and you see these models that I just explained. The videos are all there. Winning by Design, youtube.com/winningbydesign. Please take a close look at those channels if you're at that channel if you're more interested. That's where these models will go. Currently, there's 3 models on there. The remaining models are coming on shortly. We discussed these 5 models today in brevity: data model, business model, GTM model. GTM model, growth stage, and growth model. It gives you an idea of what we started to set off with this conversation and the reason why it's so important. When you read that book, it says that from everything that you use, if you want to create scale of growth, you need to adhere to models so you can update and upgrade and refine and tune. We can no longer just work on what people say on stages at these remote, events and just listen to them. We got to calculate it out, do it. We got to use models that have been refined and used again and again. That is what I had in store for you today. To share that with you, it's always been a privilege and a treat to me. So with that, I want to open it up for a few questions. Any update on my new book? What we are doing is the book, we are publishing all these models in the public domain in lieu of a book. We found that it is better for us to publish it. So our YouTube channel is more intended to that. End-to-end system must be optimized. Absolutely. What we want to make sure is that you look at this from an end-to-end perspective. Many cases, we don't look at it that way. And I'll give you a brief explanation on that. If we only look at sales as what sits in the blue, we're going to create silos. You have to have an end-to-end methodology. And we suggest that what you use is you use your customer journey to determine that. And with that, I want to say the following. Recurring revenue that you want is the result of recurring impact. There's just, no other. Jacco, there are so many models. Is it best for a company to choose just one? Models are describing go-to-market models up to $10 million. You want to pick only one GTM. You want to A/B test multiple GTMs at that point in time. But you don't want to have launched, you don't want to be at $6 million with multiple go-to-markets. You don't want that. That can be very complicated because every one of these requires a different approach. So if I am here in VSB market, in the SMB market, in the enterprise market, I gotta have and a product-led growth organization and an event team that helps me create thought leadership. And I gotta hire a bunch of expensive salespeople that are worth it. Don't get me wrong, they're worth it. but they are basing on brand, people, and so on and so forth. You can't afford that. So you always should focus up to 8, 9, 10 million, one segment only. Is there any other questions? Thoughts, ideas, feedback? May I ask to all of you, can you type in your key takeaway? Help me out here. What is the key takeaway that you took from today? Give an idea. What is the key takeaway that you had from this session? Type it in. And invite all of you to read each other's comments so you see what the takeaways are. Yeah, it's incredible damaging. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 1 GTM, need to adjust what we're doing. Yes, yes, yes. Confusion multiple. Yes. You see, folks, this is you telling each other, right? This is not me. Like, look, I learned from you over the years. All I'm giving this, I feel very privileged. Like I started the conversation, I feel very privileged because I learned from you. I see all these companies go wrong and I go like, oh my gosh, how can they keep making the same mistake? And it's quite explainable why it's happening and where certain stubbornness comes from. Karthik, you nailed it. Like sustainability is sales math, folks. This is not to the detriment of the organization called Sales Hacker. That's not. So whatever I say about Hacker, don't relate that to that organization. I'm an engineer by trade. Can you tell? As an engineer, what we are doing, everything is model and processes. You got compilers for your software code. I mean, you got everything. You got demo boards. I used to build hardware. You got these little breadboards that you work off with, right? And you're so structured. Hacking in that world is essentially cool because it's a very structured world. Sales, folks, we've been hacking sales since it was invented. Like, we're all hackers. We need to go the opposite route. We don't need more hacking. What we are seeing here is that we're running on so thin margins, with SaaS, that we need to start thinking about properly modeling it. We believe, this is my passion for all of you. Okay, I'm going to bring up this thing. Look at this. What do we want to teach at University 11 about sales? Do you want to teach how to close and how to write an email? Or do you want to teach about business models, data models, different mathematics, what different GTM models are like? How do you go through growth stages? Growth models, methodologies, how you design things. This is my passion. This is what I believe sales should be about. This is what real sales is. And of course it involves in the back end also people delivering a pitch and stuff like that. I love that too, but we really can have one and the other. It doesn't have to be an XOR, okay? This is what we can have. We just need to passionately do this. With that said, I want to give you one final message, and it's not a political one. I just want to let you know, all of us are here to make a change. This change is to help people sell, market, and bring on customer success. And if we do that right, then this economy will be kickstarted like nothing else has ever happened. I hope to have given you a few ideas about that. And with that, I want to give it back to Richard.
Jacco, that was phenomenal. I have so many pages worth of notes here. I don't think I can fully ever express how mind-blowing that was. I feel like I got my PhD, my MBA, and about 2 decades worth of business experience in 59 minutes. And it was entertaining as hell. I'm sure there's going to be more questions. Folks, we're going to send everybody a link off to the Winning by Design YouTube page. It's phenomenal. It's helped me as a business leader. Jacco, on behalf of everybody here today, all the folks watching the recording at home afterwards, and everybody in the Modern Sales Pros community, thank you so much. I'm fired up right now. Like, I'm fired up to dive into Excel and model, man. That was awesome.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
Excellent. And everybody stay safe. Jacco, once again, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day, y'all. Take care.